Okay, let's talk about how to stop feeling lazy when you actually feel very overwhelmed. So, does any of this sound familiar to you? Like you actually want to get things done, but your body just simply refuses to move, or you spend more time thinking about doing the thing rather than actually just doing it. We feel guilty whenever you rest, like you should be doing more, or you feel behind before you even start, or you make these like big plans and then you freeze whenever it's time to take action, or you mentally beat yourself up for like wasting time even though like deep down you are exhausted. And if you're nodding yes to even one of these, I want you to lean in because this really isn't a laziness issue. It's a thought, an overwhelm pattern that we can actually change. I'm going to show you how to do it in this video today. Because if you've been calling yourself lazy or unmotivated or not disciplined enough, deep down, the truth is you probably care a lot and you're not alone, like, and you're actually not lazy. And the way to know that you're not lazy is because you do care deeply about your goals. You think about changing all the time. Like you feel bad when you don't follow through. And you do keep consuming self development content like this, and you have these high standards, and maybe they are too high. But lazy people don't feel guilt or reflect or try to grow. They don't even think about this stuff, but you do. So, most people who label themselves as lazy are actually just overwhelmed, exhausted, or carrying these impossible expectations. I'm going to show you like what you need to do. And the first thing you need to understand is that you are not lazy, you're not broken, you're not failing at being productive. Whenever your brain feels overloaded, okay, it's simply telling your body that you've got to slow down, not because you don't care, but because you just can't see and it can't see a clear, doable path forward. Okay, this is not laziness, it's a protective response that we all experience to overwhelm, to decision fatigue, and mental clutter. So, why do we feel this way? Okay, because sometimes like we label behavior as lazy without understanding the thoughts behind it. So, what does lazy look like in action? Okay, looking lazy or feeling lazy is often when we have these really unclear next steps. We worry about doing it wrong. We have these high standards, like perfectionistic standards, or maybe like too many competing priorities, where you feel behind before you even start, or you believe, like, well, why would I start? Because it's not just going to be good enough anyway. So, when it comes to your thoughts, I want you to understand like this idea that you are lazy is going to impact your feelings, not in a positive way, and your feelings are going to drive your actions. Again, when you're feeling crappy, you don't feel like doing anything. And so if your thought is like, I can't handle this or it won't be good enough, like the feeling's going to become very heavy or pressured or hopeless. And then what are you going to do when it comes to your actions? Okay, you're going to avoid or you're going to shut down. Not because you're lazy, but because that's the way that our brain works. And so the question really is like, like you might be thinking it's, well, why am I so lazy? But the real question is, why does this action feel so heavy or unclear or impossible at the moment? Okay, because once you shift the question, the solutions suddenly become available. Okay, so it's not like, why am I so lazy? It's like, why does this action feel so heavy, unclear, or impossible at the moment? So I want you to stick with me because the next part matters if you want to stop blaming yourself and actually start moving again. And so I just want to share with you the first thing is number one, if you're thinking that you can shame yourself into action, it's not going to work. Self criticism, okay, it might feel motivational in the moment, but research just shows that it increases your avoidance, not follow through. And so if you're beating yourself up and you're thinking it's going to work, it's never like worked at making you a productive more person. You probably discover that in your own life. Okay, so you can't shame yourself into taking action. The next is understanding that your brain is always going to avoid what feels confusing. Okay, it's not going to always avoid what feels important, but just what feels confusing. Lots of people don't actually avoid the tasks that they need to do because they don't matter. It's because those steps feel so unclear or emotionally uncomfortable, they just don't proceed. And the other thing is, let's talk about the way you label yourself. Okay, when you repeatedly say to yourself, well, I'm lazy, I just never finish things, I'm not disciplined, your brain treats those statements as the truth. Okay, not observations, it's almost like instructions. And so your behavior begins to follow the identity that you're repeating to yourself. But you aren't lazy. Okay, remember, we're rewiring the way that you think about yourself. You're simply carrying more than your mind or your calendar was ever designed to hold alone. And so some thought shifts that I want to offer you is stop saying I'm lazy and start saying I'm overwhelmed at the moment and I just need clarity. Replace, I should be able to handle this. Okay, the shoulds never work. Into, like, instead think, well, let's just break this down into one small step. And replace this idea that, well, everyone else can do it into, well, comparison isn't data. Okay, it's not going to serve me well. And rather than saying, well, I'll start when I feel motivated, all you need to do is say, I'll start with a tiny starter step, a little baby step. Okay, we're going to be replacing the all or nothing thinking with something small is still progress. And so I want you to just really think about the actions that you've been avoiding that are leading you to call yourself being lazy. Write it down. What is the task that you are avoiding? And then finish this sentence. What feels hard, unclear, or heavy about this particular action. And then choose one step that you could complete in 2 minutes or less. Okay, this is about shifting the brain from, judging yourself over to practical strategies that you could just embrace. Those tiny little baby steps. Because you're never going to become motivated to do anything by forcing yourself, pressuring yourself, judging yourself negatively. You're going to become finally motivated to take action, even the baby actions, when you see yourself as someone who follows through very gently, consistently, and with respect. Okay, so you've got to change the way you view yourself. Just immediately stop and ditch this idea that you are lazy. Okay, you're just a bit confused about where you go next. Okay, and with lots of compassion, you can begin to have clarity about your next step. But you can't have that clarity if you're constantly judging yourself. And if you do want more support in changing the way that you think and follow through, okay, I've put together the most incredible free guide. It is called 5 Thought Shifts to help you get out of your own way. You can find the link to the free guide inside the description. Okay, now the final words are here. You were never meant to hustle your way into taking action. Now, you don't actually have to earn your right to rest. So, if you're not actually feeling lazy but you just need rest, give yourself that rest and never shame yourself for being overwhelmed. So much of our feelings of overwhelm come from simply thinking that, well, I can't handle this. But what if you tell yourself a different story? Like, I can actually handle this. Okay, because all you need to do is handle one step at a time. And so you begin to replace self-criticism with curiosity instead. Not why can't I do this, but what would make this feel doable right now? Okay, that is where change begins. Well, what would make this feel doable right now? Your brain is going to offer you a solution, an answer. Listen to it. Your brain is so much smarter than you give it credit to, that most of us give it credit to. And that is how you slowly shift out of this identity of being someone that you think of as lazy. You're not lazy. You're simply overwhelmed. You simply need clearer, doable steps. And you get those doable steps by asking yourself, what is the next right step for me to take? What is the next doable step for me to take? And like I said before, that is exactly how change begins.